To avoid police pursuit, the villain casually tossed flour into the hands of a retired lady. However, the police didn't notice this incident at all. Consequently, on her retirement day, the old lady unexpectedly received 5 kilograms of flour. Afterwards, the main character not only refrained from reporting the incident but also returned the batch to the gang. Seeing that the other person was a senior citizen, the gang leader was momentarily puzzled. Following this, the old lady explained her purpose for being there. It turns out she also wanted to join in and sell flour. Are all senior citizens like this nowadays? The old lady continued. She firmly believed that her age made her perfect for the job, as all the gang leader's underlings were on the police's blacklist, whereas she had no criminal record and had never been suspected by the police for selling flour. The gang leader found this reasoning convincing and, without further ado, cut off a kilogram for the old lady. Of course, this was a trial period, and the old lady could only take a 10% profit. However, once this batch was sold, the gang leader promised to increase her share to 20%. The old lady readily agreed, and the gang leader thought of it as a mere trial. Little did they know that the old lady would soon become the top flour seller in the entire gang. Upon returning home, the main character faced a dilemma. She needed to divide the flour into small 5-gram packets for sale. However, this substance was incredibly hard, almost like a rock, and even an electric saw proved ineffective. How on earth can I deal with this? Fortunately, the old lady managed to crush the flour with a meat cleaver, and once the flour was packaged, a new problem arose. The old lady and the gang leader had forgotten to discuss the price. In desperation, she had to turn to her son-in-law, who worked as an undercover narcotics officer, to gather information. Directly asking would be unwise. So, she used the excuse of wanting to learn more about her son-in-law's job.
On va chercher dans les combien, ça?
5 kilos, environ 10 000 euros au prix de gros, 2 fois plus au détail.
Le gramme à combien tout ça?
And ended up being led into the records room, where she found a type of flour that matched her product. Her son-in-law was a bit puzzled, and the old lady realized she had misspoken and quickly changed the subject. With everything in place, the next issue was finding buyers. With no other options, the main character had to go to the gang's gathering place and try her luck, disguised and asking people if they wanted some flour. The gang members mistook her for a police officer conducting a sting operation and were too afraid to engage. Eventually, the determined old lady found a potential buyer among the crowd, and with her high-quality product, she quickly attracted more repeat customers. Soon, all of her stock was sold out, and when she handed over the proceeds to the gang leader, everyone present was astonished. According to the agreement, the gang leader offered the old lady a 10% share of the profit, but considering her remarkable sales skills, he decided to give her even more merchandise. The old lady believed that, in just a few months, she would be driving a fancy car. However, fate can be unpredictable. Just as she left the gang leader's apartment, she was immediately detected by a nearby drug-sniffing dog on patrol. The police dog went into a frenzy, almost attacking the old lady's basket. Fortunately, her son-in-law, Little Black, was nearby and managed to prevent a tragedy. To ensure her safety, Little Black also carried the basket and accompanied her back home. In the days that followed, the old lady frequently appeared at the gathering spots of the gang members. Despite the chaotic environment and poor security in that area, it was the perfect place for her to sell her goods. In just a few days, the retired lady became the top supplier in this area, while the others couldn't sell a single gram of flour. Although the old lady was making a substantial profit, her actions quickly aroused jealousy among others. One day, the other gang members couldn't stand it any longer and decided to teach the old lady a lesson. They not only took her goods but also confiscated her money, threatening that if there was a next time, she wouldn't see the sun tomorrow. Upon returning home, the old lady was in despair because half of her earnings had been taken, and she couldn't meet her agreement with the gang leader. So, she came up with a clever idea to change the way she sold flour. She decided to mix the flour with eggs and created small flour-infused cakes to test the effectiveness of her new product. She invited some friends over to taste them. To everyone's surprise, not only did they praise the cakes for their delicious taste, but they also found them to be quite uplifting. With her new flour-infused cakes in tow, the old lady hit the sales route again. In just one morning, her goods were sold out. She returned to the gang leader with her earnings, but this time, she came 3 times in a week, which exceeded the entire annual sales of the leader's operation. Realizing the potential, the old lady asked for a higher commission, pushing it up to 30%. Initially hesitant, the gang leader had no choice but to agree since the old lady had become the top seller. Her product, thanks to the flour, had a strong following of customers who became addicted to it. In just 2 days, the old lady managed to complete another round of sales, shocking the gang leader even further. He couldn't understand how his gang members, all strong young men, couldn't outperform an elderly woman in sales. So, the gang leader decided to make the old lady the exclusive distributor and supply her with 8 kilograms of flour. But the old lady, recognizing the challenge of moving such a large quantity on her own, invited some former gang members who had bullied her to her home. Initially skeptical, these individuals changed their minds once they tasted her cakes. They finally realized that the old lady was adding flour to the cake. cakes, which not only made the customers happy but also filled their stomachs. It was a win-win situation. The old lady asked these individuals to help distribute her cakes, offering to pay them a 15% commission. The gang leader realized that he had no choice but to cooperate because everyone in the area preferred the old lady's product. From then on, the old lady's home became a hub for cake buyers, and even her friends had to line up to meet her. Despite the risks, the retired lady was determined to make the most of her new venture. The demand for the old lady's cakes was insatiable. Once people tried her cakes, they lost interest in all other foods. Since she couldn't keep up with the demand, she decided to invite a few of her old friends to join in the cake-making process. When they heard that there was money to be made, her friends readily agreed, and within a few months, the old lady became the financial queen of the gang's operation. She no longer had to pick up the goods herself. The gang leader sent his men to deliver the cakes and settle the payments in person. However, the old lady soon began contemplating her exit. Joining had been easy, but was leaving as simple as it seemed? In the end, even the gang's leader had to meet her personally. As the gang leader couldn't comprehend how the old lady managed to triple their sales, he decided to let her replace the local kingpin, which rendered the second-in-command jobless.
Ah la putain de ta race, c'est même pas de réseau dans ce trou pourri là.
The gang leader suggested that the old lady sell her cakes to kindergartens, hoping that the kids who grew up eating her cakes would become loyal customers. Although the main character was initially reluctant, she had no choice but to agree. The old lady stopped making cakes after this decision, opting to spend time with her grandson. However, she later realized that the gang leader had indeed sold her cakes to kindergartens. Upon her return from vacation, the old lady noticed that someone had entered her home, which was undoubtedly a warning from the gang leader. When she entered her bedroom, several thugs immediately took her hostage. The gang leader wanted to send a message to the old lady through the gang members that they should continue making cakes. Otherwise, her grandson would pay the price. Fortunately, at this critical moment, her son-in-law, who was a police officer, paid a visit. As soon as the thugs realized he was a police officer, they made a hasty escape. When they entered the room and saw the chaotic scene, the old lady claimed that it was caused by a strong wind. Before her son-in-law could ask more questions, she promptly ushered him out of the room. However, the old lady was not one to be underestimated. She armed herself with a toy machine gun and a rolling pin, and with her friends, they stormed the gang's hideout. The gang leader, upon seeing the old lady with her fake weapons, began to panic. Finally, under the threat of the main character, the gang leader had no choice but to release her grandson. At that moment, an awkward situation unfolded. The gang leader suddenly realized that the weapons held by the old lady and her friends were all toys. As a result, they were quickly captured and tied up by the gang members. The people sent to pursue the young boy were surrounded by the police. It turns out that the son-in-law had realized something was amiss early on and had reported it to the police before he left. The police quickly broke in and took control of the situation. While the lives of the old ladies were spared, they couldn't escape the consequences of their actions. After all, the old lady had helped the gang sell a significant amount of their special cakes. In the end, the court sentenced the elderly ladies to prison. However, due to the friends they had made during their business ventures, many people organized protests and called for their release. The media also paid high attention to the case, considering that the old lady had played a crucial role in dismantling the gang despite her involvement in their business. The court eventually granted them parole. Upon her release, the old lady opened a cake shop, but this time, she didn't add any special ingredients. And with that, this story comes to an end.